President Moon Jae-in wrapped up his 4-day visit to China on Saturday in the southwestern city of Chongqing, a place of great historical significance for the Korean people. He continued to press a message he's been sending in China that the two countries are stronger when they work together.
The South Korean President Moon Jae-in met with China's second-in-command, Premier Li Keqiang, both emphasizing the need to promote bilateral friendship, including economic cooperation and human exchanges. President Moon said he hopes his meeting with Premier Li will accelerate the recovery and development of the Seoul-Beijing relationship and enhance cooperation in various areas, including the agriculture and finance sectors.
완생을 넘어서서 앞으로 상생의 시기를 함께 맞이하기를 바랍니다.
They also agreed to closely communicate with each other for the early hosting of a trilateral summit between Seoul, Beijing, and Tokyo. It was the second time the president and the premier had met. The first came during the ASEAN summit in the Philippines last month. Earlier on Friday, President Moon Jae-in met with Jang De-jang, the chairman of the Standing Committee of the National People's Congress, roughly the equivalent to South Korea's National Assembly Speaker. President Moon said to Jang that he considers the meeting meaningful, especially because both South Korea and China must prepare for the next 25 years to come, and expressed his gratitude for Jang's continuous support of a peaceful resolution of the North Korea nuclear issue.
The United Nations official who visited North Korea last week said he suggested Pyongyang resume dialogue with Seoul and participate in 2018 Pyeongchang Winter Olympics. In an interview with New York-based South Korean reporters on Thursday, the UN's Undersecretary General for Political Affairs Jeffrey Feltman said he told the North that the two Koreas and their military authorities need to resume talks to solve the nuclear issue peacefully and diplomatically.
One is a restart or initiation of the type of military-to-military and intra-Korean channels that can reduce risk.
How the North reacted is not known, but he said Pyongyang did not seem to see denuclearization as a realistic option. He said he also suggested competing at the 2018 Pyeongchang Winter Olympics as a way to shift the direction of the current situation, but can't predict whether the North will participate.
I hope that they will take some of the ideas that we put on the table and pursue them, including participation in the Olympics.
Feltman said Pyongyang authorities listened very attentively to his suggestions, noting them down and asking questions. Also speaking to CNN on Thursday, Feltman said he was worried about the lack of communication channels with Pyongyang and that there was a, quote, high risk of some kind of miscalculation that could lead to war. He added that lack of trust has driven the regime to rely on military deterrence in the short term. Feltman was the first senior UN official to visit the North in 6 years. During his 4-day trip, he met with high-level Pyongyang officials, including Foreign Minister Lee Yong-ho.
The two discussed ways to create a future-oriented relationship between the two countries and called for efforts to increase communication and exchanges in all areas and at all levels, including between their parliaments and parties. And with that, President Moon wrapped up the Beijing leg of his state visit. The rest of his trip will be in the city of Chongqing, about 1,800 kilometers southwest of the Chinese capital. According to the Blue House, Chongqing not only holds historical significance for Korea as the site of the nation's provisional government during the Japanese occupation, but it's also a key part of President Xi's policies on economic cooperation with China.
Shared history, shared future. That's been the underlying message all throughout South Korean President Moon Jae-in's state visit to China, and he made sure to stay right on topic on this fourth and final day of his tour by kicking off his day here at the Korean Provisional Government, or government in exile during Japanese colonial rule, located right here in the heart of Chongqing.
The first South Korean president to visit the site. The Republic of Korea is rooted in the provisional government. It is the spirit of our people. President of the Republic of Korea, Moon Jae-in. Highlighted by his visit to the former office of his nation's provisional government, which operated during the 1910 to 1945 Japan's colonial rule of Korea, is historical empathy between South Korea and China, their struggle fighting for independence against Japan's past imperialism.
여기 와서 보니 좀 가슴이 메입니다. 우리가 역사를 제대로 기억해야 나라도 미래가 있다고 생각합니다.
To make sure history is remembered and records preserved, President Moon said it is another area that he and his Chinese counterpart have agreed to work on during their third bilateral summit in Beijing on Thursday. That vow was reaffirmed by the president and Chen Mi-er, the Communist Party secretary of Chongqing, a close confidant of Chinese President Xi Jinping and a rising political star.
I welcome you and your delegation. This trip allows us to commemorate our country's friendship and historic relations. We can also strengthen our practical cooperation.
Enjoying one of the fastest economic growth in China, the southwestern urban center is also home to the business operations of hundreds of South Korean firms that have suffered from months of Chinese unofficial retaliation over THAAD.
한 충칭 간 경제 협력의 확대가 중국의 서부 대개발과 또 중국의 균형 발전에 아주 크게 기여할 것이라고 생각하고 우리 한국 정부로서도 최선을 다하겠다는 약속을 드립니다.
The South Korean president's conclusion of his tour this time around here in the nation's southwest epitomizes his China state visit. It may have lacked the pom-poms and extravaganza, but he did manage to achieve what he came for, building a future of peace and economic prosperity along with China based on their shared history of oppression and perseverance.
One of the most significant diplomatic trips for Korea this year, President Moon Jae-in's first state visit to China. It comes after the long-standing row between Korea and China over the deployment of the U.S. missile defense system THAAD. As expected, President Moon spent his first 2 days in the capital city Beijing, during which he met with Chinese President Xi Jinping and Premier Li Keqiang to discuss the future and development of Seoul-Beijing relations. But as is the norm for Korean state visits to China, he is visiting another city. This time, it's Chongqing in southwest China. President Moon Jae-in's choice to visit Chongqing is turning much focus toward this relatively unfamiliar city. But given its regional characteristics and historic background, experts are hopeful that this visit will help boost bilateral relations. During World War II, Chongqing housed the headquarters of the last Korean government in exile, in which Moon's predecessors organized a movement for independence from Japanese colonial rule and laid the foundations for modern Korea.
총칭 임시정부를 방문함으로써
The president's visit to the Korean government in exile in Chongqing reflects back on how the leaders of the two countries actively communicated at the time. In the long run, meeting the city's leader, Chen Mi-er, could also lay the foundations for future relations, as he is a close ally of President Xi and one of the potential future leaders of the country.
Chongqing is also home to several of Korea's biggest companies, such as SK Hynix and POSCO, as well as Hyundai Motor, which the president is expected to visit on his trip.
President Moon's visit to Chongqing shows a strong interest in the city, which could be a huge boost, helping encourage local companies in the region collaborate with the Korean companies there.
The city's landlocked location also gives companies the upper hand in expanding into the innermost regions of China.
The traditional places for expansion, such as Beijing, Shanghai, and Shandong province, are saturated markets with high competition. In contrast, the Central West area of China has strong buying interest, which is yet to be fully explored by Korean companies, so they can really use it to their advantage with the right marketing.
More importantly, the key word when discussing economic opportunities in Chongqing is China's Belt and Road Initiative. The BRI is a major project proposed by Xi Jinping that aims to connect Eurasian countries by bridging the gap in infrastructure to accelerate economic growth in the region. Experts say that because of the role Chongqing plays in this huge nationwide project, President Moon's visit to the region should hopefully pave the way for Korea to also participate in the project.
The BRI passes through Chongqing, and considering its strategic location, South Korea needs to think of ways to make use of it and get on board the project.
President Moon Jae-in made it clear not long after taking office in May that one of his main economic goals is to improve Korea-ASEAN relations and proposed the new Southern Policy. It aims to boost trade with ASEAN countries to more than $200 billion a year by 2022. Experts say that while paving our own way when expanding economic relations is a good start, being a part of BRI would boost these efforts.
신남방 정책이라는 것이 있지 않습니까? 우리가
The South Korean government's new southern policy aims to improve diplomatic relations with ASEAN countries. China's Belt and Road Initiative also happens to pass through this region. So we need to create a codependent relationship with China, so they also need us.
President Moon's visit to Chongqing and China overall is just the first step for the two countries in thawing diplomatic relations. But pundits remain hopeful that the state visit, along with the additional South Korea-China free trade agreement talks coming up this month, will bring mutual benefits for both countries.